this pandemic on its face appears like it would be very, very difficult for the world of commercial real estate and especially the world of office space. But there's a contrarian view that I know you have and some others do about what this may do for companies like WeWork.
Good morning. As I listened to Eric Schmidt over the weekend on Face the Nation, the ex-CEO of Google, and he said, in this pandemic, social distancing is the norm, and effectively, we will need more office space, not less. I'm a firm believer of the same. It's speaking to many of our enterprise clients. They're seeking more space to make sure professional distancing becomes a norm. The key to WeWork is flexibility, but flexible in space, flexible in time. We believe in the hub and spoke model. Our enterprise tenants are telling us that effectively they need a hub and spoke model. The spokes need to be closer to where their employees live to minimize the amount of time it takes and commuting time it takes to get to the office. We've learned extensively from our experiences in China, where we have over 100 buildings, on what it takes to create best-in-class spaces for professional distancing, for HVAC systems, for sanitization. And we spent the entire month of April spending tens of millions of dollars getting our spaces ready for when people can get back to work. Right. I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel as if they are in their own homes. So we're pretty encouraged with the planning that we've done to encourage the employee workforce back to work.
Sandeep, that's the question, though, because the conventional wisdom is that WeWork has always been about community, about bringing people together, even people that don't necessarily work at the same companies together for that community. But in a social distancing world, how many of those people are going to prefer, given that they're in relatively white-collar jobs that can be done on a laptop and a telephone, that they're going to prefer to do those at home if they're not going to do them at the traditional office that they would have otherwise gone to?
So actually, the key to WeWork is flexibility. It's flexibility of space, flexibility of time. On the contrary, the only place that we can actually make space flexible, and if you actually come visit our WeWork locations, you'll see that people can sit 6 feet apart. There's distancing available. It's very easy to reconfigure our spaces to make it safe for the employees. It is not conventional space where you have walls, you have cubicles that cannot be relocated so quickly. And as I was listening to some of the earlier players on your show, one of the questions was, how do we reconfigure the space? Again, you should think of us as flexible. Flexible means you can de-densify, you can spread out the locations and people come to work. I've been going to several WeWork offices over the last few weeks, and it's encouraging to see people come and to sit in these open spaces 6 to 8 feet apart. So as a matter of fact, the key word for us is flexibility, and collaboration can still occur while keeping your distancing.
Right. Sandeep, what does it do, though, to the economics of your business, even if you're able to fill all of these offices at, let's say, I don't know, is it a 25% or 30%? We've talked a lot about what's happening, for example, at Disney. It's one thing to be able to reopen. It's another thing to be able to get to a significant enough group of people who are there to make each location profitable.
So it's a very good point. We ended Q4 with about 740 locations. We're ending Q1 with about 830 locations. One thing that happened, that's fortunate, is that we had this additional supply that came online at the very right time. So in our case, the way we look at it is that effectively this gives us an opportunity to increase occupancy, and therefore we should not impact much of our economics. We took a period of time, almost 18 months to 24 months, to mature these buildings. And so if you've got 60 additional buildings with capacity to mature over a 24-month period, occupancy is more the important factor than actually occupancy per square foot from a rent perspective. So we do believe, at least because of our ability of where we sit on an occupancy range, that effectively economics will not drive our decision to create a safe environment for the employees.
The other question, when it comes to safety, there was an article in today's Wall Street Journal talking about elevators How many people can go in an elevator? In fact, there are people developing or thinking about an elevator for one. How does that work? And how are you thinking about it?
So again, looking at what's happened in China, we've been able to see where people are taking 4 people per elevator. You essentially time where people can come in. It's almost like commuters. When you commute, you pick the best time to commute to make sure the traffic is the least for you. I think over a period of time, people will get used to, the times where elevators are busy, where the lines are busy. People will phase out their timing. We're also fortunate, actually, in 40% of our buildings, effectively we sit, lower in the building, whereby people could use, stairwells as well. So that happened sort of by default when we took real estate lower in the buildings, and that also helps the commuter come into the buildings without much traffic. And so again, I think the fortunate part of being flexible in our office space, our location within the buildings allows us to, be more nimble when it comes to serving our employees.
And then the other question, this idea of a sort of distributed workplace, how much do you think that improves the cause for some companies? Because the question is you could argue either everybody should be at home or everybody should be at the office, but this sort of midway strategy or middle ground strategy, does that advance things for a big enterprise company that may want to only, or may put, I guess, a handful of people in Brooklyn so they don't have to travel into Manhattan, if in fact that's the kind of thing we're talking about here?
So again, looking at our own workforce and trying to see how we bring them back to work, we find it to be, it doesn't really work if you have an A/B system, as you just said. If you have teams that stay at home and working by Zoom and other teams that come to work. And so again, the aspect of being geographically distributed, going back to that hub and spoke model, bringing teams together, so they can work in packs, even if they're in different offices, is actually the way I think people will come back to work. I think either it's all or nothing, but it's going to be scaled because no one wants to rush. We ourselves are bringing in 25% of our people week 1, and then we'll see after 2 weeks we'll bring another 25%. Again, having our own geographic distribution, we're able to accommodate our colleagues to come back and spread out throughout the city and throughout the boroughs of New York City. So I do think actually the aspect of WeWork, having that flexible space, being geographically distributed within a city and around the world will actually be an advantage. And enterprise clients of ours are reaching out and saying, you can provide something to us that we really can't provide ourselves, which is that professional distancing and geographic distribution closer to our employees. So we actually do think this could be a silver lining that actually will help occupancy of our new assets to be brought online in the first quarter.
Hey, Sandeep, Adam Neumann, the founder of WeWork and the former CEO there, is suing SoftBank for walking away from that $3 billion tender offer. Where do you come down on that? Obviously, the situation has changed from when the tender offer was made, but what's your position?
So, again, SoftBank has provided about $5.5 billion of liquidity to WeWork from the fall of 2019. That gives us enough capacity to operate our business. We sit with over $4 billion of liquidity today. And effectively, we've been able to right-size our organization. We've been able to, improve by leasing our assets. We're on our path to profitability in 2021. The $3 billion tender offer has to do with existing shareholders. It's noise in the background as far as I'm concerned. My focus is to right this ship, and it doesn't really take up our time or our energy and focusing on a lawsuit between existing shareholders and SoftBank. We're focused on righting our ship.
Hey, Sandeep, the other question I wanted to ask is, are you paying your rent, and how many of your customers have called you up and said, wish I could, but I can't pay my rent this month?
So, a good friend of mine, Jeff Blau from Related, said, if you can pay your rent, you should pay your rent. So I called him up and I asked him a question. I said, what should I do? He said, the places you make a lot of money, you should pay your rent. So I'd like to sit back and say I followed his advice. We've paid our rent in over 80% of our locations in April and May. The remaining locations, we're just in discussions with our landlords in a friendly way, and therefore we plan to make whole on our entire obligation. I do believe in the trickle-down economy. If I stop paying my rents, the landlords can't make their mortgage payments, and then it's a domino effect. On the collection side, we've collected over 70% of our rents in the month of April, and we are working with small, medium businesses in deferrals, freezing of rents, and different aspects with them. I speak to them myself. On Saturday, I spoke to a gentleman out of Los Angeles and worked out an amicable solution. Yesterday, I spoke to a gentleman out of the London office and worked out an amicable solution. So we are working with those who can't afford to pay rent in deferring their rents over a period of time and accommodating to create a win-win situation.